This video is about how insulin controls not only diabetes but also our weight. Hello, my name is Graham Keegan and I have had diabetes, I've been overweight, I've got myself into my healthy BMI range and I've got myself into remission. And I've done this by understanding what one has to do to go and achieve it, and I can help you do the same. So insulin, it's in the driving seat. It rules the roost, if you like. And to put it very simply, what happens is if your insulin is continually high, the point of being insulin resistant or diabetic, you will have weight issues. Vice versa, the good news is if you get your insulin under control and it normalizes, your weight will follow. Not overnight, but it will follow. Insulin is in control. And of course, also insulin underlies so many serious health problems, metabolic problems that we have. But understanding insulin and how it works on the body and then taking action about that can bring us all great health benefits. So I think it's worth remembering what the renowned Dr. Jason Fung has to say about insulin and weight. And he says this, that overeating doesn't cause us to be overweight. Instead, it is being overweight that causes us to overeat. Now, it's an important cause and effect relationship he's identified here, which is the basis of what we're talking about today. So let's start here. If we eat a diet, which we all do, which has far too much carbohydrate in, and carbohydrates is sugar, it causes our blood glucose to spike. And that in turn causes our insulin to spike, and this is when it all starts to go wrong. Because what insulin does, by having too much of that in the bloodstream, that starts to store fat. It slows our metabolism and it makes us feel hungry. So these are all the wrong things you want to be doing when you have a weight issue. And so this is the start of the downward spiral. So controlling insulin becomes crucial. That's the point I want to make here today. Because also having high insulin, this leads to the first marker of what's called metabolic syndrome. And there are 5 of these, and the sequence goes like this. High blood sugar, caused by eating a lot of carbohydrate, as I've already said, causes the insulin to increase. And if that goes on for a protracted period of time, we're talking years, you will start to get what's called insulin resistance to that, when the insulin just is ineffective at removing the glucose from the bloodstream. So that's your first marker. The next one is that leads on to high blood pressure. Now there's some complex reasons why the blood pressure increases as a result of insulin resistance, but it does. Then the third one is that actually starts to cause a high amount or level of triglycerides in the blood as well. The fourth marker is low HDL count. The HDL is, I don't like these terms, but let's use it because everybody knows what this means. Low HDL is they call the good cholesterol. So that is lowered. And then finally, you get a build-up of abdominal fat. So they're your 5 classic markers of metabolic syndrome. I'll go into those 5 in another video in more detail, but that's enough of those for this particular video. But apart from to say that, of course, you can see that those 5 things happening then lead on, and they're the forerunners to much more serious illnesses we can all suffer from. It starts with diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and indeed cancer as well. So, coming back to insulin and insulin resistance, you can see how important insulin is in controlling its release and minimizing it and stopping it from spiking. So therefore, my point is this also, when we just think about weight, is just thinking about calories and limiting how many calories you're taking in just misses the point about how calories and the source of those calories has a very different effect on how our bodies react to them. And it just misses the complexity of the metabolism and what are the underlying causes of obesity. Because all calories are not metabolically equal. And as I've already said, the insulin is this hormone which controls how these calories are used, and also controls the body processes and also how energy is stored. So the type of food we eat is very important. That's behind all this. As many will probably be aware, there are 3 macronutrients: fat, protein, and carbohydrate. So I just want to go through these briefly, just discuss what they do and a balance of what we should be eating. Because the body deals with these 3 macronutrients very differently. Fat becomes fat. Protein is broken down to amino acids, essential building blocks for our bodies, and the excess protein is turned into glucose. Carbohydrate is turned into glucose, and excess carbohydrate is turned into fat. Putting it very simply, that's what happens. And so I don't think it's too a simple point to make, but I think this doesn't oversimplify it. But essentially, carbohydrates are our problem with our modern diets. We just eat far too many carbohydrates, and not only that we eat far too many, but also the sort of carbohydrate we eat aren't the best type of carbohydrates at all. And in fact, sugar obviously is a carbohydrate, and that's probably the single biggest food problem we all have in our diets today. So as I say, carbohydrates, we eat far too many of these. We eat the unrefined carbohydrates, which are okay. We'll get a bit more of that in a moment. But then we eat far too many of the refined carbohydrates, and also we eat far too much sugar, which is a carbohydrate as well. And it's all these three types of carbohydrate all cause the insulin to spike. Because when, as I've already said here, when the insulin spikes, it then signals the body to start storing fat and reduce metabolism. And so it inhibits fat breakdown. And so it's very difficult to lose weight if you have insulin out of control. But it's all too easy to put weight on. So the aim of the exercise is actually to control our insulin. And we do this by reducing our consumption of carbohydrates, but particularly the unrefined carbohydrates, the processed carbohydrates, and the sugars. And in fact, our diets, whether we're diabetic or we're very healthy, our diets as adults should really be high in fats and low in carbohydrates, no matter what your health condition. Because our carbohydrates, we're just eating far too many of them. Now, people say, well, hang on, fats, are they healthy? Well, yes, they are healthy. But they'll also say, well, there's far too many calories in fats. Yes, there are a lot of calories in fats. In fact, there's more than twice as many calories per gram of fat than there are per gram of carbohydrate. But the all-important difference is that, well, there's 2 things really. The all-important, and that is, firstly, that fats make us feel full, satiated, as to use a technical term, but also they actually don't cause our insulin to spike, unlike carbohydrates, and that's pretty crucial as well. So in broad terms, I'd like to give you just an outline food plan, just in very broad terms of what we should be eating. We should be eating a diet which is high in healthy fats. So I'm not talking about biscuits and cakes and things. I'm talking about healthy fats, oily fish, salmon, for example, natural meats, and eat the fat and eat the skin of chicken, etc. It's all good for us, all natural, healthy fats. Plenty of eggs, avocados, nuts, olive oil. There's an awful lot of foods we can eat which are a lot of healthy fats within them. We should have a moderate amount of protein. And then finally, we have a low amount of carbohydrate. And the carbohydrate we do eat should be the unrefined carbohydrates. So the likes of wholemeal breads and things like that. Because yes, they are still a carbohydrate, but at least they have plenty of fibre in them, which is very good for our microbiome. And they release the sugar into the bloodstream much more slowly. They have a lower GI. Which is very useful. It doesn't spike the sugar in the blood. But we should be avoiding as best we can the refined carbohydrates, so that's white flour, whether it's in white bread, pasta, and things like that. And also avoiding the sugars as well, the sweets, the donuts and stuff like this. So high, medium, low for the 3 macronutrients, and as I say, carbohydrates should be low. And when it comes to the fact that you may be overweight, you want to make your carbohydrate intake very low. If you're diabetic, it should be very, very low. And one more category we'll talk about another time, but it's not appropriate here. Your intake should be very, very, very low if you are at risk of cancer or you have cancer. But that's for another video. And so there's your broad plan. And I think the way to look at this is you want to eat natural foods that don't need labels. A piece of beef or a piece of salmon or an avocado or some nuts, they don't need labels. But a donut does. I think that's the key difference. So avoid the foods in the supermarkets which have labels, so need natural foods. I think that's as far as we need to go for one day. I'd just like to say that every Monday I do a live event on Zoom, which you're very welcome to join. I'll put a link to the registration of that below this video, and we cover a new subject every week, and you are welcome to ask questions in that. Ask whatever you like. It runs for about 30 minutes or so, and it starts live at 6 p.m. UK time on a Monday. So that's all for this particular presentation. I've enjoyed talking to you. I hope you've found it useful. I wish you the best of health, and talk to you again soon.